Hey, and welcome back to the Big Damn Podcast, the monthly peek behind the scenes of our independent film production and distribution company, Big Damn Films. Welcome back. We'll got to figure out a name of what to call people, Logan. I wrote movie buffs, but it's more. I was like Big Damn Fams, Big Damn Family. Big Damn Family. What do you think? We'll workshop it. Screw it.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I think Big Damn fans are fine, but
Big Damn fans. Welcome back to another exciting episode of hopefully a very not so long-winded episode of the Big Damn Podcast. I'm Michael Doherty. Alongside with me is my partner in crime and maestro of all things road detonation, Logan Liskovec.
Ready for another deep dive into the world of independent filmmaking?
No. But today...
And done.
And done. But today we have a special treat. We're going to sit down with a very incredible, talented filmmaker, friend of ours, John Johnson of Darkstone Entertainment, to discuss his journey of filmmaking, the creative process, showing up in Browncoat's Redemption, how we got all connected, and the magic of storytelling. And you get to know John a little bit better. So before we jump into it, Logan, what was your thoughts leading into that conversation with John? And did you learn something at the end?
I did learn stuff at the end. It's always, I've worked with you now for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
I've known other kind of, creative individuals, some who've written books and some who've done comics and other stuff in life. And, there's always something to learn anytime you talk with somebody who's so creative, let alone as prolific as John is. The
200 plus films.
It's just, I can't imagine the amount of time dedicated to so much of that, and so much of it shows in his work and his passion for it still after doing that. There's always stuff to learn and things to be inspired by when you're talking with a creative individual like that.
Well, as we are now honorary Gravers in the Darkstone family, we took the pledge, we shook hands, and pacts were made under the cover of moonlight. We now introduce you to John Johnson. Hey, John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah.
So, the fun part of this, for those that don't know, is that Logan, John, and I have all been in the same location at least one time before, not counting the filming of Night, but for Browncoat's Redemption.
That's right.
You guys were both there for the first weekend of filming, which was actually the final shots of the movie.
That was the end of your production?
No, that was the beginning of the production, but
but the last of the film. Ended up being the climax of the film. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember the big fight coming down in the front.
Yeah.
So the way that I did the production is that I did it with scaled it down from the most amount of people in the scene down to the last weekend of filming was just the main cast of 6.
Oh, gotcha.
So the first couple weekends were at Frontier Town with the big fight scene, and then down to a little bit more, and then we went to a park where we did the walk and talk bad guys, which had about 30 people there, and then after that it was all in the warehouse of doing the ship stuff with just the main 6 people, because I wanted to get all the hard stuff, what I thought was the hard stuff, out of the way first, until we decided to do a 360 degree multi-focus pull shot in the middle of the ship.
Oh.
Yeah, that was fun. So then we did Browncoats, and it's been a while, and we're back together again because we've relaunched Big Damn Films, and you signed on.
Yeah. You've been a luck charm for me.
Explain for anybody that had... You and I were talking about this.
I went into a little bit of depression. We had a guy take the rights to our Plan 9, for about a year. He said he was going to raise the money for it, and he didn't, and then just came back and said, sorry, we're done. And I went through a little bit of a depression about it. And then to get me out of depression, they said, there's this guy shooting this movie about Firefly. You like Firefly. Why don't you sneak onto his set and just get to see movies again, get to be around it. So I did, and while I was there, I wrote the first episode of Spade, which we went back to that same location and shot not in that location, but the same town. A couple months later, and I stole all of your people. I secretly was just giving out cards. I wasn't planning to do that, but then you had so many really talented people there.
Well, I said this to everybody when we were filming, and it felt like one of that thing that like first time filmmakers say of, it's not the like exposure thing, but like I really wanted Browncoats to be a vehicle for a lot of the people that were in it to go on to do different things. Mm-hmm. So like Kurt, that was his first movie, and you've used Kurt a couple times since then.
A couple times, yeah.
I can't remember his name. You had John Patrick Barry. I apologize. Gentleman who played our lead bad guy, the older gentleman, was in at least one of your stuff. Yeah. And I don't look at it as stealing. I look at it as like, look, you saw talent in people that we recognize talent, and you gave them additional opportunities. And that's probably the biggest compliment.
We tried to keep it quiet that I was there, because it's a lot of times first time filmmakers and filmmakers in general, when you have another filmmaker on set, you kind of don't want to feel like you're being judged for however you do it, or like you'll be more comfortable in that. So we tried to keep it quiet who I was. But I think by the end you found me, because we went all to the restaurant and you came over and introduced yourself.
Yeah.
Once you figured out who I was. But yeah, it was fun. I just wanted to sneak on. I did it before on Hearts of Atlantis. I went on as an extra for like 5 days, and I just worked and just watched them how they did stuff. I just thought it's fun to do as long as they don't know who you are.
Well, for me, you gave me the lifelong dream of, I had the man in the yellow coat, like as the fan of Curious George. Like before I started to connect who John Johnson was on my set, there's this guy, the man in the yellow coat. And I'm like, that is the biggest Easter egg that I think me and maybe 2 other people are going to get. Yeah. Which was great. And then got a nice scene with Mariah and Valerie in it when they were doing the panning around. So Misty got to be a good moment.
Mariah also interrupted your set by having her phone go off in the middle of a shoot.
Yes.
I just left her. I just like, this is all you. I just walked out. The embarrassment was so hardcore for me, because y'all it took it well. They just all turned to look down, because they're on a higher platform, and they all turned to look at us, and I was just like,
well, I will tell you that she is in good company, because for anybody that has seen the behind the scenes features on Browncoats Redemption on the DVD or Blu-ray, we did interviews with like the cast and crew of the original TV show. And one of the first interviews we did was with Alan Tudyk.
Oh, yeah.
And when we were doing the interview, we were told to turn all the cell phones off. If a cell phone goes off, interview is over.
Mm-hmm.
And this is by the handlers and the people running the convention.
Right.
And like, they said it multiple times. And like, I don't remember if it's in the interview, but like, we have the B-roll of it where he's like, all right, everybody turn off your phone. We're mid interview, and the guy running the convention's phone goes off. And then Alan's kind of like laughs it off. And then 2 seconds later, the person that the owner of the convention assigned to be Alan's handler's phone goes off.
Oh, man.
So like the 2 people that yelled at us for like hours about turning everything on, turning it off, like their phones go off.
Their phone.
Like the second time, like Alan just lost his patience, and we just thought it was hysterical.
I actually met Alan on Hearts of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, so he had a house for the actors, and I was in there, and he was in there, and I didn't know who he was. We just kind of goofed off a little bit, and we were playing poker. And the kid who has passed on, I can't remember his, now I'm old man, Yelchin.
Anton Yelchin.
Anton Yelchin was the main kid who came in, who looked just like they told us at the beginning, don't talk to the talent, don't do anything with the talent. Alan wasn't considered talent at that point. I think he was just there. He had like a bit part, and then they said don't talk to the talent. And then we thought it was the son or the lookalike came in and started teaching him poker. And then the AD comes in and sees me with Anton teaching him poker, and the newspaper was there at the same time. And so she like yanked him away and said, "You shouldn't have been doing that." They kept me on, but the newspaper put John Johnson, local filmmaker, disrupts set and teaches lead actor how to play. It was just like, God, why?
Thank you for the press, but
Yeah.
no, I mean, and honestly, like when I found out you were on the set, I was happy. You know, as a filmmaker, I think it's a good compliment if somebody steals the cast. I think it's a great compliment if somebody like yourself not only shows up on set, but goes, okay, this is worth me staying for the rest of the day. You know, I got, yeah, you were, but I mean, like you were there for the weekend, but like I got very fortunate that when we did the proof of concept for ZCon, Justin Timpane and Daniel Ross brought out, who did Ninja's Verse, who have also gone on to steal people that were in our stuff. They brought Ed Sanchez, the director of The Blair Witch. He came out on set, hung out for the day.
Oh, cool.
So I am always welcome because I think it's like a great community, you know, like I'm not big on ego. I really don't think it should be like a closed set. I think there's an opportunity to learn at every opportunity.
Absolutely.
You know? And,
but not a lot of filmmakers think that way. So it gets a little, I worked with a lot of filmmakers that will co-direct scenes with me, even though I'm the director. And when I tell them is that you get the sequel, I'll get to this one. And they usually take that as a good way to they're like, oh, okay, I'm overstepping a little bit. But no, I've collabed with a few filmmakers before TikTok came involved. And then there was always like an awkward meeting at first.
Yeah.
Like a little mating ritual where you kind of like sniff each other out. What camera do you shoot with? Camera you shoot with? And like, okay. And then we'll send each other like a little packet of what our stuff is like before. I remember working with Trevor Moore, who eventually who passed recently as well, who did Wise Kids You Know, or I think it's him and I met. We were on PAX Television together, which is a Christian network, and neither of our shows were very Christian. So we both got fired different times. He got fired for going way too far with a joke. I got fired because they got the highest Nielsen ratings in that they've ever had on the network. And the owner of it in Texas wanted to see what the show was. So one look at it and then pulled us.
Wild.
So Trevor and I had that, we were working on a film together before he went to LA. And then he ended up, he went to New York first and became Lauren Michaels' assistant for a while.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about TikTok. Like you and I have talked about this a little bit, non-podcast, but you are, to me and a lot of other people, kind of the godfather of filmmaking on TikTok.
Well, thank you. I went to TikTok to basically die, essentially, when I first went there, because I didn't think I could do movies anymore because of the Parkinson's, and I was like, 15-second movies, I can do that. And so I went there and we were the second. We thought we were the first, but we were the second group to do a web series on TikTok in 2019. There was one guy who started 5 days before us named Bear Cub, and he works with us now too, but he was 5 days before us. But first I used it as just to kind of pay homage to the movies that we love, like Ghostbusters, which was the one everybody found me for, because I was the first Ghostbuster on TikTok, which eventually got invited to the premiere in New York of the new one because of that. And then, but yeah, it's just kind of like a way to do it. And then the fans found me and through my lives, because I'd get very drunk and go to lives, and they would record my voice and then use it to make up their own TikToks, which is hilarious. That they heard about Spade, and they did a 30-man walk where they all dressed up as Spade, and then they walked, and then somebody else duetted them to get me to come back and make movies again, which we started with Spade, and they did, and then Sharky Son of a Bitch came out of it, and Night, and they basically brought me back, and they realized I can do it.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I every time I said this to Wee before, who is your right hand, but it is a very intimidating place for me. I'm not one of those people that's I've never wanted to be an actor. You were very kind and let Logan and I in a scene in Night.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So it's one of those things. It's like I'm really good when I need to be, but it's not something I seek out. And if I have to like make my own stuff, like this is where I think you and Bry and others like excel. Like filming myself is the most frustrating thing in the entire world. But I really appreciate like the level of creativity that you guys do when you do shorts for, skits, and then you guys just did a Halloween one and I missed it because I wasn't feeling well. But the collaboration that you guys do on that platform is amazing.
Yeah,
I don't see that anywhere else.
I was like one of the first guys to, during Plan 9, I went and cast YouTubers in Plan 9, and most of them hadn't been approached before. And I even had a guy named Nigga Higa, who was like the number one guy, and he signed on to do Plan 9, but then Disney came and snatched him up before we started shooting.
He must have changed his name, because I don't necessarily know that would be a Disney name. What does he go by now?
I think it's just Ryan. I think it's just first name.
Okay.
I think his account is still that, though. Which means something different. He's Asian, so like it means whatever it means is different than. But I guess it's a bad word to say. But that's why I think it's what we did. Is everybody it gets people's attention.
It got mine for like 30 seconds, so I don't blame. So anyway, he got picked away by Disney.
Yeah, but then James Rolfe and the guys Chad Bader, Matt Sloan, and Aaron. That was like the first person to bring these people on to a production. And so when I got to TikTok, I for the first thing I did, the slash tag, I just started contacting TikTokers and just saying, hey, do you want to do my short or my series? And almost all of them were just immediately like, sure. Because the difference between YouTube and TikTok is that YouTube, the actors, or not really actors, they're, I guess, influencers is what they're called now. It's kind of like a 50-50 chance whether they can act or not. But if you're going through somebody's TikTok, you can kind of tell if they can act already, because you have to do a lot of emoting constantly. So we've been very lucky with that. And I mean, I made some really good friends doing all that.
It's amazing. So that brings us up to where you and I reconnected.
Yeah.
Not that we disconnected. We were like Facebook friends and all that other fun stuff. And I've kept an eye on what you're doing and supported where I could. But I saw that you had an Indiegogo for Night of the Blue Moon.
Yeah.
And I reached out. I was like, how can we help? And it was just at that same time, you're kind of our good luck charm, because I was going through the same thing. Like I had put myself through 8 years of filmmaker purgatory because of all the shit that happened with ZCon.
Right.
But that's a podcast for another day. And I had, spent 8 years. I edited a feature film for somebody called Nowhere, Alaska. I helped a bunch of filmmakers get like locations and insurance and makeup artists and all of this other stuff. And I finally just got to a point where I was like, I'm doing this shit for everybody else. It's time to get back to it. And then at the same time, like Logan and I were talking about relaunching Big Damn Films.
Yep.
Because I have to finish ZCon. And then yours came along, and I'm like, one of the things that have always stood out in my brain is that I had an opportunity to sit at a filmmakers roundtable with a bunch of other filmmakers led by Ed Sanchez from Blair Witch. And it was at that table where we realized Ed and I were the only two people to make money. Ed, because he did a major blockbuster, me, because I did Browncoats and distributed it by myself, not by myself, but like Logan and a bunch of us around the world. And then scheduled our own showings. And I came back to, there's a talk at South by Southwest that Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Smith did, where Quentin asked in the room, is anybody interested in distribution? And I kind of had that light bulb moment where if I'd have been in that room, my hand would have gone up.
Sure.
So that naturally came to like, let's do it again. And it made perfect sense because I saw what you're doing. I got very excited about it. I like love your work and wanted to help. And you became our first victim. I mean, advocate.
No, it's been a great, like, just, it's more than a collaboration, because obviously you guys, like, for those that don't know, schedules are made, and because of COVID, being that just changed the whole way things are being done. So cancellations happen so much.
Yeah.
With actors that, are there so it's been a nightmare. It's been almost a year shooting this movie.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple movie. This is just what drives me crazy. Like we did Plan 9, which is like huge thing we did in 30 days. But this is like, I've had so many cancellations and just pullbacks and all sick related. But we're just about to finish it. And it's different for me because most of my films are very ensemble pieces. They're usually like, this guy's the comedy, this guy's the heart, this, they all kind of break down like that. But this movie is all about a father and daughter, and the daughter doesn't talk. So it's a father with a doll, a doll and a doll. So like we have a killer who also doesn't talk very much. So all the talking comes from the night. And I wanted to tell a story that was about heart. And like the whole purpose of the film is, his last lines are, don't make the same mistakes I did. That's how he ends.
Mm.
And, so we learn from, and then we kind of, it's kind of like there's a cuteness to the whole thing, which apparently a lot of my films kind of carry, is like a really graphic horror and then like a cuteness to it. For some reason, I don't know, it just happens every time. But most people know me from Plan 9, which we murder children constantly. And I want to say here that was not the plan. There was a plan to kill one child in the script, but then every time we call for extras, kids would show up. Yeah. So like we're there and it's like, okay, there's a little girl on the bridge, people getting gunned down. She looks adorable. Take a shot of her. So like we just worked at him that way. And I hadn't really like done anything on this level in a while. Even though I bought all the gear, like basically I prepared myself for major film production and then got sick. And so everything just kind of sat there. And Shark is kind of a weird one because that's, people are shooting with their cell phones and sending stuff in. It's not quite the same as Night. Night's a straightforward feature narrative. And I've done a bunch of rewrites on the script. So it's kind of been a blessing at the same time. So I think I've evolved a lot as a filmmaker, and hopefully it'll show. But there's a lot more character study. And my daughter, we originally was shooting, was very tiny, had very, like 2 facial expressions. Now we're filming her. She's got like 10. So it's like we've kind of been able to do a lot more with that. Because she also can mimic, which is huge. Like we've been able to get her to do magic and stuff like that. So so it all kind of works. It worked out, but it was just like you guys were very, grateful and being with me through this kind of like a up and down with the schedule and stuff like that, which has been nice.
Yeah.
It's also one of the first times I had a distribution company attached before I finished.
Yeah.
Usually,
it's usually after, and it's one of the. I had a conversation with somebody before this, who will name nameless, just because they asked to be.
Okay.
But when Scott we were talking, what's that?
I was just guessing it was Scott Bakula.
No. Nor was it Kevin Sorbo. But the conversation was that most distribution companies nowadays just take a movie and throw it out there. Like unless you have like a major name attached to it who could push it to the stratosphere, like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, very few distribution companies want to get involved in the marketing and the actual personal involvement and taking the time to do the work to put the film out there. Just any film. Like you said,
it's kind of like YouTube. YouTube, like you can put a video up. You got to send everybody to it, otherwise no one's going to see it.
Yep. You got to do it yourself, and the companies don't do it themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I wear that weird hat of like I like doing the creative stuff. I like making the movies. I like doing it, but like I also like the other side of it. Like I frequently joke with Logan and others. Like most filmmakers like to make and be pregnant with and have a baby, but then rarely send it off to college. They just kind of make a movie, people see it, and then it goes away. I think there's so much life into that process that and you and I, we're all fans of cult films. Like, when movies come out, even the 1980s Thing, when it came out, it didn't do great, but look at it now, 30 years later.
Well, Army of Darkness.
An Army of Darkness. And like those movies, those movies wouldn't be what they are now if they just went up in a weekend theater and then sat on, Sam Raimi's shelf.
Yeah.
So I want to make our own movies, but I also want to help other people get their movies out and find places to do it and do the things that we're good at, which is like marketing and making a big damn show of things for the people that do it, so that you can go back to creating other stuff. Like, and selfishly, I want to help you make more movies because then I get to watch your movies.
No, very kind.
And as we'll go along, like there'll be John Johnson movies and Mike Doherty movies. Maybe one day a Logan Liskovic movie, where Bry decides to actually finally make a movie. Like we'll have a Bry movie come out.
Yeah, he's got ideas.
Yeah, but the idea is like slowly build a library of people that we're helping them tell their stories, so we can get it out there. And I haven't, not since the olden days of like Paramount and stuff like that. And A24 is kind of doing it now, but we're kind of different, and I'd rather us be involved.
I made a joke offhandedly earlier about Jerry Maguire because it was it feels like that personal attention that you just don't get, and that's what the whole movie's about. And like, because he only had the one client at the time, and then it just worked out for him. But like, you just don't get that. You don't get that at all. There was a phone call. Well, I can't really say, but I was on a phone call for another movie. And they were talking about me as selling it from domestic to international, and they were just talking all this kind of greasy, horrible talk. And I was there on the phone, and they never asked me a question. And at the end, they just said, "Is it okay with you, John?" And I was like, "Uh-huh. All right, goodbye." And they just hung up, and I just felt so like I need to put my money on the table and walk out. Like it just like it felt real bad about the whole thing. And granted, they did, I guess, put it out there. They did the work, but it was the polar opposite of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we're hearing that a lot. Like we're hearing that like we are the opposite end of the spectrum from what most people experience.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, we're starting with you, and we've gotten asked to distribute other people's stuff, and we have told them we want to get John's first one out. We want to like make sure that we can take care of. It'd be very easy for us to be like, hey, we've got John Johnson. Now let's go get the rest of the baseball team.
Sure.
But the personal part that you're talking about of us having a focus and wanting to make sure that your stuff's getting done. And it's very important for Logan and I to make sure that you have what you need to finish the film. Now, when the film's done, that's a different story. But like, we want to make sure, because we're not just, it's like the Hair Club for Men. We're not just members. Like, we're not just the president. We're members. Like, we
also a client.
Want to see. He said also a client.
Yeah.
And that's the way that we're going to take it with everybody down the line, and making sure that like the other part that's important for us is that not every filmmaker wants the same thing. Not every filmmaker wants to go to the festivals and take a year of their time doing that, and then go like. Some filmmakers want to go straight to DVD. Some filmmakers want to spend a year in the festival circuit. Some film festivals want to just have a big premiere, and then, that's it. So our goal was to listen to what each filmmaker wants and how they want to tell their story, help them tell their story, and then kind of go along in that direction instead of just everybody has the same cookie cutter process.
Yeah, I basically, every time I released a film, I just never thought about it again. I was one of those guys, I was on to the next one. I've made 250 films. Yeah. And the reason for it is that I didn't spend any time with them. Once they released, I was like, well, hopefully they'll get to the right people. And I just go on to the next one. I just did that constantly for a long time.
Well, unfortunately for us, we have a library of stuff that we can help put out to the world now.
Yeah, I've got a few movies now. They're all like almost done. I got a bunch of almost done.
But it'll be what I'm looking forward to, John, is this time next year, all of those almost dones are dones, and we're talking about like what's next.
That would be exciting. Which also that was one thing about us, was like the first time I had talked about the future in a very long time. Like pandemic kind of put everything like I did a lot of retrospective, but never like sat down and said, what am I going to do now? Yeah. And this was the first time I really did that. And so you guys kind of gave me it was a good luck charm. Yeah, you came to me when I went down the first time, and you came to me again when I went down the second time. So,
hopefully there's not a third time, because we want to keep you around.
Yeah,
but look, I mean, it's the same thing for us. Like, I have no problem. Like, I'm not shy about admitting, like, I deal with issues with mental health and depression and stuff like that, and getting the shit kicked out of me on the Zcon stuff. And Logan's been very patient for 12 years. Jesus Christ. But coming back to it and like knowing how, after we had the conversation with you about coming on board and doing this together and having a 5-year plan, like that was the first time in a very long time that I'm like, I can look at 5 years, 10 years, like this is now something I see past the first movie. Because if you'd have come on set on Browncoat's Redemption, and I looked back, like I did a very retrospective thing, which was stupid, but a couple days ago, and I looked back at like interviews and stuff that I had done. Like I never looked past that. Like I wanted the film finished Browncoats, and I didn't know what was next. I would tell everybody like I have a year's worth of promotion because that's all that a certain studio gave us is a year, and then I have a very drunk interview at the end of 2011 when I was at Dragon Con, and somebody put a microphone in front of my face when we were at the after party, and that's when I stood up on top of a table and announced ZCon, and I was trashed. But like, I had not, again, was the same thing, was like looking for the next film. And now, thanks to you as your good luck charm, and you're our good luck charm, 5 years, 10 years down the road, like, it's nice to have something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
So speaking of something to look forward to, 200 films.
250.
250 films.
Yeah. All good.
That and that like long form, short form, and everything in between, right?
Yeah, basically, I count short films, but also the television series that has like 20 some episodes, all it just counts as one. So it kind of evens out.
Sure. Okay. Where does John Johnson come from besides Virginia to come up with 250 films?
I just was born with it. I don't know how else to explain it, but when I was very lucky to kind of know what I wanted to do at like 5. When I was 7 years old, I wrote a play based on Ghostbusters. I used the 2 solid lines and dotted line to get your, during recess, I stayed in and wrote this play, performed it in front of the whole school, vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. I got teachers to build stuff. And then the next year I made my first movie called Zap, basically ripping off V, the TV series. And I had like a laser tag gun, and that's as much as I can make sense of it. But then take a couple years off because, puberty. And then when I was 13, I moved to a town. I graduated like 2 months early. So I went to a town while everybody was still in school, and I had like 5 months summer, and I didn't have any friends because I didn't know anybody yet. So I went down to the video store, and I told him I want to make movies. So I want to rent 2,000 of your films. And he said, I'll make you a deal. Older movies are a dime. Ones on the new release shelf are going to be a quarter. So I'd mow lawns and I'd watch movies every day. Like I started off getting one from every genre. And then when then I get like 2 from horror and the rest of the genre, then 3 from horror. And I ended up just going straight. Horror was my way. And I watched everything. And then after that, I made a movie every weekend for my entire high school career. I had a feature, 2 features. I'd shoot it, I'd screen it, see what I did wrong, and then not do that again. And just kind of rinse and repeat.
And then what happens after high school?
After high school, I worked in a few jobs, went to police academy. Then I decided that I was at a Regal working, and I decided I was going to be a filmmaker forever. There's a story on that where I was, it was, Will Rogers Institute would come on before the films would start.
Yep.
I would collect for it was like Mel Gibson, I think, off Lethal Weapon 4. And like he would come up and I would collect money for the Will Rogers. And I made a big show of it every time, just performing my butt off. And we raised the most for every Regal in the country. We raised the most to get all together. And the manager went to Vegas for it. And I got nothing. I got invited to a pizza party after I showed up to the pizza. And so that was going on. And I was back. I was getting ready. I was in behind the curtain. It's only like 2 feet. Getting ready to come out for the Will Rogers thing. And I'm listening to the song, and a certain song played, which I think was Iris. Never heard it before. and then opened up, and I just stood there, and I said, I'm sorry. And I got down, and Joe Hurt was there. It was one of the FX directors of American Werewolf in London. I saw him. I was looking at him, and I just ran upstairs, quit, took the CD out of the thing that played all the music, and then I just started filmmaking full time.
I heard Police Academy.
Yes.
Was that a short-lived?
I
Was
wanted
there
to graduate.
You did or did not?
I did.
So
I worked
what
for
stopped you
advanced
from?
investigations for a little bit, private investigator firm.
Okay.
And then that was it. Didn't enlist as a police officer anywhere.
Okay.
Advanced investigations was kind of like I got my license for that, and then basically because I was so young, I was on stakeouts all the time. Like that's basically what they did with me and then I went to court a couple times and saw how horrible this was. And I also had a close call, kind of not close call. There was a guy, we're seeing if he has back problems, and he was doing an insurance scam. And I got the binocular thing on. I'm watching him. He's throwing bales of hay on the back of a truck. It's like, shouldn't be doing that. And he sees me, grabs an axe, and starts coming to me. I freak out, and I realize I have binoculars on. He's really far away. So I just drove the car away at normal speed, and that was the end of it. But then I was like, maybe I don't want to do this.
What
Prudent choice.
potential axe? Yeah, one potential axe murderer later.
Yeah, he was definitely he was themed. He was too far away.
So that gets us, and this is all like prep work for our documentary.
Those PAX television. I found that you could buy time slots on television.
Yeah,
just go get the advertisers to pay for it. So I went door to door to getting businesses to sign up to do my show, and I did PAX there for a while. I got fired because we're not very Christian in what we were doing, but the people who hired us knew what was going on, but the owner of the entire network didn't know until he saw we got the highest ratings of their entire station ever. And on Christmas Eve, it was our Christmas episode, and they fired us. And so then I went on to I did movies. I drove around to local video stores with a bunch of VHS in the back of my car and tried to sell them to local video stores. I did that for a while with Skeleton Key Zero, and then I sold my first film to Brain Damage Films in 2003 called Shadow Hunters, and that kind of changed. That's when we started like marketing and selling the films, getting them out there that way.
So how do we get to Spade?
So I had the big one was I had an idea. I was working on Skeleton Key 3, and we were complaining about remakes, and somebody said, "Well, if you could remake any movie in the world, what would you remake?" And I thought about it, and I said, "I would remake Plan 9," because I knew Plan 9 from Outer Space, because it was known as a bad film. Why not take a bad film and try to make a good film out of it versus taking a great film and making a good film out of it? And also Conrad Brooks was a friend of mine, and he told me a very sad story. Like that Wood film that Tim Burton did makes everybody seem like they rode off to the sunset, had these great careers. That wasn't the case. Like Ed Wood went into porn that no one saw. Like it just like everything went sour for them. And so
real life went the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. So I said I would try to do that, and I sent a text out in T9 on my little flip phone. And then I got a call when I was in New York about a week later. They said, "You need to go get Fangoria right now." What are we talking about? Go get Fangoria. I go get Fangoria. I open it up. It says, Val Kilmer doing this. John Johnson remaking Plan 9 from Outer Space. I'm like, oh, shit. So I did kind of a joke. And then we just went to figure it out. And this guy came on from LA, another greaseball. And he signed on as a producer rep, which a producer rep is an agent for the film. He said he was going to raise the money for the movie. Took it for a year. And then on his final date, just said, I'm sorry, I didn't get any money. Yeah. And so I got depressed, and that's when I ended up coming to, I didn't shoot anything for almost a year, which is a long time.
Wow.
And then I got invited to go see this man's film and kind of sneak on set. So I did that, and it kind of inspired me. When I was there writing, I just kind of put Spade together about what happens to the guy who saves the world 10 years after he saved the world. Like, where is he now? And I put that as together as a web series. We got nominated for a local Emmy for it. Because we had the audience choose what happens next. So it was interactive, and we did that for about a year. And during that time, I just said, "What the hell with it?" And I wrote a Facebook message. Anyone who wants to invest in Plan 9, I'm going to do it. And then I had $50,000 by the end of the weekend.
Wow.
And then the more just kind of came in, and the whole movie just kind of came together from the fans of Spade and Skeleton Key. And then Plan 9 happened. I did a few other projects since then, and another series that I'll be talking about eventually more so when I get able to go public about it. But then Parkinson's came, knocked on my door. It was very shaky. It was a lot of knocks. And then I got the Parkinson's, and I got very I didn't think I could do it anymore. I just kind of went into that like coma kind of thing, and then did TikTok, and then just really connected with fans of my work, and like in a way that you couldn't really do before. Like when they come to your live, they ask questions, and you just talk to them, and you just kind of introduce your life to them. And yeah, it saved my life. It absolutely did.
Well, I'm glad. Absolutely glad. So speaking of saving your life, tell us about the Gravers.
The Gravers they had these families on TikTok, and I was not a fan of families because I saw what the families were doing, and they sound really weird and kind of cultish, and it's like, I don't want a family. But whoever, another TikToker said, you need to put a group together. You need to put a group together. And so I thought, well, we're always up at night, so graveyard. So we'll just call ourselves Gravers. And I put it out, and yeah, Gravers have like, I don't know what it is now, 59 million views or something like that. Yeah, just look up the hashtag. But actually, I'm gonna do it right now. But yeah, so like they just kind of came on, and Gravers can make other Gravers, so they can keep adding to the family. I hate calling it family, but I guess that's what they call it.
Community.
Yeah.
But these guys basically all started off by I kind of look at it as like I'm the Waffle House that they're all at. They came for the Waffle House. They're in different groups. So I'm typing in Gravers in TikTok right as we speak.
So would that make we the shield maiden of Waffle House of Gravers?
Yeah, no, which is funny. She worked at Waffle House, I think, when she was younger. Yeah, no, poor girl, really got invested in what 122 million views.
It's a terrible number. I don't think you've done enough.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, no, we Carrie just saw me flopping around and it's like, and I was trying to come back, and she kind of just came in and helped. Like it was just I can't marry her because I'm already married and she's married.
Yeah.
I'm basically, I owe my life to her, and so her just coming in and just handling my website. She does the Facebook, she does the pushes, she helps with designs, like she makes props and books and stuff like that for the.
That's awesome.
She just
we're a big fan of the Wii.
Yeah,
yes.
She's like a Swiss Army knife of talent. Like she has all these different things that she can do, and yeah, so that's basically it. She basically did the heavy lifting to get me up on my feet.
So we've gotten through the past. We've kind of talked about what brought us to the present. Where does John Johnson go from 2024 to the future? Now that you and I are both looking at a future, you and I have at least, me, you, Logan, and Carrie have at least a 5-year relationship, which I hope is at 25 minimum. Yeah. What's the future look like for Darkstone? What's the future look like for John Johnson?
Well, a lot of movies that didn't get finished, or they got close to being finished, but then I went into that depression. I'm wrapping them all up and handing them over to you guys to hope for the best. One of which is Rifters, which we shot a long time ago as a Trancers pilot, a pitch for the movie Trancers. We sent it to them. They never watched it. They just didn't have time for us. So we went back and shot another 8 days, and we only shot 16 days on that whole thing. Like, it's amazing how we got all that done.
Yeah.
We're all about dead. But we did that, and people who see that seem to really like that movie. So I'm excited to get that one out. And then I've got The Dark Net. I had movies that kind of failed in the way they were distributed. There was Fear Fighter, which was a remake of my first film that was for, what was the company's name? I can't remember the company's name, but we did a interactive movie thing where you can go 700 different ways you can kind of play it. And they just went under. The second we launched, they went under. And so we're cutting that into a feature, kind of choosing the path. Yeah, it's just kind of like, I have so many movies coming out that are like almost done. Like, so many movies. At least 10 I could think of.
That's terrible. Terrible that there's so much John Johnson.
And then you have Spade, which we're doing 18 episodes total, 18 entries. We've shot 2 already out. We shot a bunch more of like different pieces of it. But then after 18, I'm going to retire Spade, make it public domain, and then other people can take over after me.
Who would you like to see be Spade after you?
I don't know. Maybe an old Spade, not Ryan Reynolds.
Oh,
I get compared to him and Deadpool all the time, and so I don't think that'd be a bad match. I think he's got to keep Deadpool, and I got Spade. And even though he nail anything he does, but
yeah,
I don't know. I'd like to see like a really old Nathan Fillion would be cool. Like, get all gray and like the old Spade. That'd be fun.
That's all right. Let's put an earmark in that. Old Man Spade is the first non-John Johnson Spade movie.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
All right, Logan, you've been pretty quiet.
I guess the one thing I'm interested in is I'm personally not a big horror fan.
Okay.
So from somebody who was inspired by horror from such a young age, what about it, or how does it speak to you in such a way that made such a mark on how you tell your stories?
There are 2 things. One, every horror film has a heavy subgenre: horror comedy, horror action, horror drama. But the other one is, when you sit down and watch a sci-fi movie or a comedy, you have to prove the reality to them. Whatever the reality is, you have to prove it. Horror, you can say the sky's purple and everybody believes it. No, they're ready to get into the story. They're like, when you sit down and watch horror, they just accept everything you tell them without any doubts, and you can just go on from there. So it's more of the fantasy world that every movie I've got is in a fantasy element to it, and I love that. I love being able to just tell the story where they have a purple sky, and you don't have to explain how the sky's purple like you do in a drama or a comedy. You just, even sci-fi, you have to really explain what's happening because they want to know how it works. But horror, you just say, "This spaceship, we're in space," and they're like, "Okay, what's next?" And so that appeals to me a lot. And also, watching my films, there's not a lot of I haven't done really straightforward horror ever. There's always been horror comedy or drama. Like, they always have really I get yelled at all the time when they review Plan 9. They're like, "Well, then it's like really emotional, and it's funny right next to it," and I hate that. I was like, "Well, I love Fright Night, and Fright Night did tons of that." You went from "I'm scared, Charlie" to "dinner's in the oven." Like, you just went from one to the other. Like, and I love that, and I love being able to flip like, people make sad, and then get them happy, and then go somewhere else. Like, not just keep the same tone the whole time.
I like that.
Yeah. Also, I need to introduce you. So you don't like horror. I'm going to send you some movies to look at to see if I might be able to open you. A couple people have come to me before and said they didn't like horror. So I've sent them films that, not mine, but other films that I think that follow horror that I've seen before that might fall like in a way. My favorite filmmaker of all time just passed, Anthony Hitchcock, and he did Waxwork 1 and 2, and Warlock, the Armageddon. So yeah, I would like to talk to you a little bit and send you some movies and see if you like them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of good films.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, like there's a lot of different things that can make a good film. It can be a good story, it can be a good
Yeah.
performance, it can be good special effects. Even sometimes, there's lots of different ways that really can make it something. So yeah, I'm always open to looking, to trying, to seeing, because when somebody takes the time to create a film, to put something out there, like that creative expression has a value, and there's always something in there to find.
A lot of times with horror, you get more of a voice of the director because the studio doesn't care. They just kind of like Fright Night. That's my favorite horror film, favorite vampire film.
Mhm.
It was the end of a line of like how many movies they put out 20 that year, so they didn't have much of a budget. Just let them do whatever they wanted. In fact, they even I think at the end when Jerry Dandridge blows up in flames, they went and got the puppet ghost from Ghostbusters that was just in storage, and for the librarian, and use that as like a thing because they had nothing to do. They had everything's on the lot. You can tell things are there. But they had Roddy McDowall just acting his ass off, and they had Chris Sarandon, and just everybody gave it their all. And that's why I love the film. It's really the acting behind it all, and the effects is they also took like the old Hammer films and kind of like brought that into like a modern thing. And I don't know. That's one if you haven't seen, I would recommend.
Yeah, I don't think I have seen that one.
It's William Ragsdale. It's graphic. It's gore though. Do you not like it's gore? Something that you don't like?
I mean, I can generally handle it. It's not something I'll search out, but if it's involved, I'm not opposed.
Mostly it happens when the vampires die. It's a funny thing about that movie. Like when humans die, they die like real off camera. When vampires die, it's super graphic. Right. But no, that's a strong movie. Chris Sarandon obviously is Humperdinck, who's the main vampire, Jerry Dandridge, and there's really this kind of like battle between which actually Anton Yelchin did it in the remake. He played Charlie Brewster. But it's like this, like they're like there's a good guy and a bad guy. Which a lot of times in horror films, there's like a group of people and then a final person who just happens to die last or survive until the end. But this is like straightforward. You have a guy fighting the vampire the whole time, like they're just against each other, and I love that because you don't really get that too much.
Yeah. I have noticed with the ones that I've seen, some of the the big zombie things that everybody, Walking Dead or some of the other ones, there's a lot of big family aspect to it. Has having your own family impacted how you tell family stories in filmmaking?
Completely. It actually is giving me so there's a couple movies that I've worked on where my wife has died on camera, and it's all fine. But then there's one where like she had like off camera to scream while this creature's attacking her. There's another film we were working on, and I didn't like that. I didn't want to see it again, and I didn't want to like that. First time I'd ever found a limit to that. And now, there isn't like a limit to what I'm doing. I haven't found it yet, but I watch other movies and I see things happen. I'm like, oh no, that's it's more. I don't know if it's just old sap now or what it is, but yeah, it's like it's like a big thing. Like you're never supposed to kill a dog or a kid. Plan 9, I killed a lot of kids, so now I got to kill a dog. Mainly, I got to do it because one, Spielberg did it, which was just hats off to him. But then two, like because of the movie Independence Day, that dog should have died. Like they're leaping through the fire thing. So because of that, we have to balance the scale.
Well, then you also have John Carpenter. Like that's when you introduce the bad creature through a very cute dog.
Yeah. Carpenter is one of the guys who gave me my biggest piece of advice. He said, "Put your name above the title, because no one will remember you. No one knows who the director is unless your name's above the title."
So it's funny, like when people ask me who don't know who John Johnson is, I'm like, okay, Roger Corman, John Waters, and John Carpenter had a drug-fueled orgy, and the child of that orgy is John Johnson.
Yeah,
and that's the visual that it resonates with everything.
I ask people because when they go to rent one of my films, like who's the alternative? Like who is they get a John Johnson film or this, whatever that is. And the only answer I've ever gotten is Lloyd Kaufman. And I thought about it, and Lloyd and I have a very similar approach. So we own our own films. We're in our own films. We do our own style. And Lloyd and I have worked together a couple times now. He plays my drunk, abusive father in Skeleton Key. And then another filmmaker made a movie where he had a news broadcast of Nilbog with us and Tromaville, like talking to each other about this other movie. And Lloyd is a super sweet guy.
Yeah.
And so I guess Roger Corman would be one too. Roger definitely has that undying will to like just make a movie. Like I love the days when he said he'd give him a poster, give Ron Howard a poster and say, go make this movie. And like, that's like, I would love to do that. I would love for somebody of you guys to hand me a poster and say, you got this amount of money, here's a poster, go make this movie. I'd kill for that.
2 years. Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'd like to get there.
Yeah.
So it's funny because for me, when I watch your movies, I see the ongoing tenacity of John Carpenter.
Sure.
Like, because he's had to go through everything. He's had a big blockbuster. He had like huge fan favorites. He's also had stuff that like but he is a through line to his own work.
Yeah.
But then I often tell people like John Waters, because you are unabashedly yourself. Like, and that like when you watch a John Waters movie, like there's the fingerprints of the personality of you and Waters and Corman and Carpenter, like are the through line for all of those.
Carpenter, especially when we did Plan 9, we wanted the same lens kit he used for The Thing. And so we contacted the company and actually got it. Going rental, and it came with like dust on it. So like we had to clean it off, and then that's the lenses we used to shoot the movie with.
It's amazing.
We wanted that Carpenter feel.
Yeah. All right. So before we let you go, do you have any questions for us?
Who put the lime in the coconut?
My question is, who shook it all up?
Touche.
Honestly, my favorite reaction on whenever you and I engage on Facebook or anything is when you say cheers, and I'm like, Night Court, and nobody gets it.
Yeah.
Like to the three of us get it.
Yeah.
But I've had a couple of people message me like, Night Court. I'm like, yeah.
I say cheers, and they think I'm drinking. They don't think it's just like, like cheers. Like that's a British like terminology. You're just saying,
yeah.
See you later.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you're drinking? Like, no, I'm not drinking. I keep doing it. I have weird ways that like in last statement, I guess in my films, you always give like an odd time because it makes people ask what the hell I'm talking about. So we'll meet at 7:33, and they're like, why 7:33? It's like, because now you're talking about it.
So parting wisdom, like before we'll let you go on the following thing. Parting wisdom for filmmakers. Anybody that is either just starting out or has gone through something like you and I have, which is a momentary lapse of needing to come back.
The only one stopping you from making your movie is you.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
I think once you realize that, it just happens.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, John, this is not the last time we're going to talk, but this is where the podcast ends. So I appreciate you having you on.
Thank you.
And there you have it, a fascinating conversation with the incredible John Johnson of Darkstone Entertainment. Many thanks to him for sharing his insights and experiences.
And that wraps up the second episode of the Big Damn Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this glimpse into the world of Darkstone Entertainment.
Absolutely. And be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on social media. And don't forget to stay tuned for more behind-the-scenes goodness in our upcoming episodes.
So thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep telling your big damn stories.